Okay, so today I'm going to talk about the present tense in Spanish, known as el presente in Español. The present tense refers to something that's happening right now, just as it does in English. So in English, there are two different ways of speaking about the present. The first way, and the most common way in Spanish, is I eat, you walk, he swims, we speak, they run, you all think. So these are some examples of English conjugations in the present tense. In English, when you conjugate a verb in the present tense, you typically use the infinitive and the appropriate pronoun, except for in the he or she form here, in which case you simply add s. Of course, there are many exceptions to this in the English language, but this is just an example. The second way to conjugate a verb in the present tense in English is to say someone is doing something. So in this tense, you conjugate the verb to be for the appropriate pronoun, and then you add the infinitive plus ing in English. This is very similar to the Spanish version, which is you conjugate the verb estar, and then you do the infinitive of the verb plus ando or yendo, which is the equivalent of the ing here. So it's essentially the same thing in Spanish. This video doesn't really go into that version of the present tense, but I can create another video on that if you would like. You could just request in the comments below. So, Spanish also has these two ways of speaking in the present tense, as I said before. But while the I am blanking something is more common in English, the opposite is true in Spanish. Oh, that's a typo there. Oh well. So in Spanish, you want to just use the direct way of speaking. So you want to say como yo muestro, or that's I show, instead of I am showing. So you do not want to use the estoy mostrando or anything like that. You want to use the first way that I showed you. And so that's what we're going to explore in this video. So it is best to say I run instead of I am running when you're speaking in Spanish. So conjugating in the present tense in Spanish is pretty simple. You have three basic endings to verbs in the infinitives of verbs in Spanish. You have AR, ER, and IR. So pretty much any infinitive you find will have these endings. And then to conjugate the verb into the present tense, what you will want to do is you just take the verb and you cut off the ending, which would be AR, ER, or IR, and you would just get rid of it. And then you would just add the new endings, which are these, for the appropriate pronoun. So if you would like, you can watch my video on how to set up conjugation charts and on Spanish pronouns, and then you'll understand the kind of format here more. This is the yo, this is the tú, and this is the él, ella, usted, nosotros, vosotros, and ellos, ellas, ustedes. Once again, if you don't understand what I'm speaking of, you should definitely go check out the video on conjugations and on Spanish pronouns. So I'm going to show you some examples of how to conjugate in the Spanish present tense. So this verb, comer, means to eat. So we're going to use that verb and we're going to conjugate it in the conjugation chart style. So as you see, we took the word comer, which is the infinitive of the verb, and we took off the ER so that it became com, C-O-M. And now we're going to add the new endings, which are in the conjugation chart over here under the ER. So we added O to C-O-M, as is in the conjugation chart before, and you probably want to take notes on both the conjugation chart and this so that you can practice and remember. So yo como, tú comes, él come, nosotros comemos, vosotros comes, ellos comen. So I eat, you eat, he eats, we eat, you all eat, and they eat. So you can see this is pretty simple. We literally just took off this ending and replaced it with a new one, which is in the conjugation chart and the slide before. Here's another example. We use the verb hablar, which has an AR ending, and each of the endings you noticed in the first slide have different endings in the present. So AR has unique endings compared to the ER and the IR, and the IR has different endings than the ER and the AR. So that's important to check. You want to make sure you add the appropriate endings. So we took off the AR, and so it became habl, and this verb means to talk, and then we added the new endings. So the new endings, of course, o, as, a, amos, ais, an. And if you're having trouble remembering it, sometimes it helps to just chant it. So like you just take the endings and o, as, a, amos, ais, an, and just practice it in your head, just saying that. Or in the ER, it's o, es, a, amos, es, an, in. Sorry. So if you just take those and you chant it kind of like that, it helps you remember it and helps it stick in your brain. So hablar is yo hablo, tú hablas, él habla, nosotros hablamos, vosotros habláis, ellos hablan. So I speak, you all talk, or you talk, he talks, we talk, you all talk, and they talk. Okay, and here's our final example. It is escribir, so it's an IR ending, the only ending we haven't done yet. So we took off the IR, so it would be escrib, and this verb means to write, so escribir, and we took off the IR, and we added new endings. So yo escribo, I write, tú escribes, you write, él escribe, he writes, nosotros escribimos, we write, vosotros escribís, you all write, ellos escriben, they write. So as you saw in the conjugations, I did include the pronouns yo, tú, él, nosotros, vosotros, and ellos. But you do not need to include these pronouns when you're writing in Spanish. As you do in English, you do have to include them in English, but you do not have to include pronouns in Spanish because it is implied, because the endings are so much more different than they are in English. So it is useful, however, if you do go ahead and write out those pronouns when you are practicing, because it helps you remember, oh, yo has an O ending, and tú has an S on the end. So as you're learning, it is very useful to go ahead and write in those pronouns, even though it's not really necessary. Okay, so here's a practice. If you would just write this down, you might want to pause the video here and practice conjugating these verbs in these forms in the present tense. So go ahead and pause the video, write these down, and write down your answers. Okay, I'm about to show you the answers, so please pause the video if you have not already done that. So here are the answers to the practice problems. Hablar in the yo form goes to habló. Comer in the tú form goes to comes. Escribir in the el form goes to escribe. And these are the three verbs we used before, I believe. So it's I talk, he eats, and you write. Or those are not the verbs we used, I apologize. Saltar in nosotros, saltar means to jump, so saltamos means we jump. Vivir means to live. In the vosotros form, it's vivís, and that means you all live. Beber in the ellos form, beber means to drink, so beben is the answer, and that means they drink. Negar means to negate. Negar in the tú form is negas. You negate. Correr, ellos, correr is to run. Correr in the ellos form is corren, and that means they run. Bailar is to dance. In the nosotros form, it's bailamos, we dance. I hope this helped, and I hope you continue learning Spanish. For more practice, you can go to wordreference.com and just pick any verb you would like and go ahead and write it down. You can conjugate it all the way out, and then you can check it against the Spanish conjugation in word reference. This does have an extra pronoun, vos. That one isn't really necessary to know to my knowledge, so you can just ignore that part, but it does have the traditional 6 listed before that. So that is a really good way to practice, and I hope this helped you guys. Thank you.